Today I want to talk a little bit about friendship in early Buddhism, what the Buddha had to say about the importance of good friends. Because sometimes our practice, our path of practice, can seem like a solitary endeavor. A very famous passage in perhaps the most famous book in early Buddhism, the Dhammapada, reads this way, "For it is by oneself that evil is done. One is corrupted by oneself. It is by oneself that evil's not done, that one is purified by oneself. Purity and impurity are personal matters. No one can purify another." So early Buddhist practice we see is largely solitary. It involves us meditating. Perhaps we're doing study of some kind if we want. We're interested in personal cultivation, perhaps in ethical ends. And these are all things that we do by ourselves. And yet, friendship itself is critical along the path. So what I want to do in today's video is first go through what the Buddha had to say about friendship and the importance of friendship, and then delve into some of the characteristics of a true friend, of a good friend, as opposed to a false friend. And we'll see that being a friend for the Buddha is quite a tall order. There's a lot involved. So to begin with, what did the Buddha have to say about the importance of friendship? Well, there's a famous passage, a discussion between the Buddha and his close attendant Ananda, and this is the way that passage went. Then Venerable Ananda went up to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and said to him, "Sir, good friends, companions, and associates are half the spiritual life." "Not so, Ananda, not so, Ananda. Good friends, companions, and associates are the whole of the spiritual life. A mendicant with good friends, companions, and associates can expect to develop and cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path." Why is friendship so important to the Buddha? Because friends can provide us with guidance and aid along the path, can help us to understand the proper things to do, the proper practices to engage in, and when and why. Also, good friends can provide us with comfort and companionship. In a passage in the Vinaya, the Buddha talks to monastics about caring for one another when they're sick. There's an event that happened where one of the monastics got ill, and his companion, the person who was living in the same hut with him, just left him on the bed, sick. And the Buddha came and saw this and was very stern with not only that companion, but with the monks in general, the monastics in general, saying that they had to be each other's aid and comfort. They had to help one another when they were sick. This is another important factor in good friendship. Now, I recently did a video on the Rhinoceros Sutta, which is a sutta known for recommending a relatively solitary life. However, even in that sutta, it extols the benefits of friendship. One of the passages, one of the verses in that sutta goes this way. It says, "If you find an alert companion, a wise and virtuous friend, then, overcoming all adversities, wander with them, joyful and mindful." So even under the worst of circumstances, having a friend is extremely important, so long as they are a good friend. Which brings us to our second point. In several of the early suttas, the Buddha extols the benefits of good friendship and distinguishes a good friend from a bad friend, a true friend from a false friend, because that makes all the difference. Mere companionship for the Buddha is not sufficient. If somebody is going to be a mere companion, that is to say, not a true friend, not a good friend, it's probably better to be alone for the Buddha. However, a true friend, again, makes all the difference. But what is that difference? What's the distinction here? In several suttas, the Buddha outlines various aspects of the true friend. For example, in one sutta, he talks about 7 particular factors of a true friend. He says, "Mendicants, you should associate with a friend who has 7 factors. What 7? They give what is hard to give. They do what is hard to do. They endure what is hard to endure. They reveal their secrets to you. They keep your secrets. They don't abandon you in times of trouble. They don't look down on you in times of loss. Now, in what follows, we will see echoes of these 7 factors here in other passages that I'll cite. But one thing we should keep in mind is that the true friend is generous even when it's not easy to be generous. The false friend, of course, is generous when it's perhaps maybe generous when it's easy to do so, but then when it's not easy, they're nowhere to be found. Also, the true friend puts up with you when it's difficult to do so. The Buddha elsewhere talks about how they put up with your harsh words towards them. So perhaps you may be in a bad state of mind here and there, now and then. You may say something that you later regret, but they'll put up with it. They're not so thin-skinned as to abandon you at the first sight of your being difficult. Now, up until now, we've been discussing mostly friendship within a monastic context, but the Buddha also had a lot to say about friendship in a lay context, that is to say, between lay people in ordinary life. And here, the Buddha talks about a number of different factors, some of which are in common with the monastic friendship, but some of which extend a little bit beyond that. For example, the Buddha talks about a true friend protecting your property when you're negligent. That is, that they see your benefit even when you don't, when it comes to ownership, which of course is not so relevant for monastics who really don't have a lot of property of their own, if any, really. But the layperson, of course, their lives depend upon their ownership and property. That's how they make a living. That's basically how they live their lives. So negligence in a lay context can be really disastrous. And the point is that the true friend has your back in that kind of circumstance. The true friend guides you towards what's good for you and away from what's harmful for you. They're discreet, they're trustworthy, and they're dependable. In particular, the true friend is somebody who will not gossip behind your back and say nasty things about you when you're not around. I think all of us understand this about the difference between the true friend and the false friend, but this is something that the Buddha emphasizes. He talks about how the true friend will defend you if somebody says something nasty about you when you're not around. This is something, of course, that's true to both a monastic and a lay context, but something to keep in mind. Also, and this is an interesting thing to consider, the true friend, the Buddha says, also expects you to keep their secrets. They expect you to be dependable and discreet as well. That is to say, true friendship is really a two-way street, rather than simply being somebody who is keeping your secrets and not expecting the same of you. And finally, when in a lay context, there are two aspects of true friendship when times get tough. First of all, the Buddha says, and again, this is something that we can perhaps understand, the true friend is there for you when you need help. The Buddha says that a true friend will give you twice what you need. So if you need a certain amount, they will offer you twice that amount, which is to say that the true friend is not there out of their own benefit. They're not looking to friendship in order to get wealthy off of you. They're perfectly willing to extend to you more than you need. And in a related and, again, very interesting kind of psychological aspect to this, the true friend will not look down on you when you hit a rough patch in your life. The false friend, the not-so-true friend, may think less of you if you go through a rough patch. The true friend, however, retains confidence in you, retains their good feeling towards you, even though your life may have taken a bad turn for a time. Now, so far I've given a number of aspects that the Buddha talks about when he talks about true friendship. However, I think we can see that true friendship for the Buddha is a tall order, as I've said at the beginning. It's not something easy to find. Most of our friendships are somewhere on this spectrum, we might say, between a completely true friendship and a false friendship. Just as we may look for true friendship. We may also look for, let's say, unconditional love. Both of these are kind of ideals that are hard to find in the real world because most friendship isn't completely true. Most love is not completely unconditional. Most friendship, most love is tainted by, to one degree or another, attachment, tainted by identification, this kind of selfing getting into it. And so most of what we find around us in terms of friendship and love is somewhere below the ideal. And that is a subject that I'm going to get into in the next video. If you are getting something out of these videos of mine, consider taking a look at my Patreon page, which is linked down below and up here on the screen, and see if you want to help support the channel. And if you're interested in the subject on the next video, it's up here as well. It will be up here when it's out. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you on the next one. And meanwhile, all of you, be well.